Imagine a man who could charm millions on national television while concealing a monstrous secret. A man who, beneath a charismatic smile, hid a trail of unspeakable crimes. Rodney Alcala, later known as the dating game killer, used his allure to gain trust while he quietly hunted his victims. His story isn't just chilling. It's a haunting reminder that darkness can wear the most deceptive of masks. Welcome to Chilling Fireside Stories, where we delve into true horror and real-life mysteries that are as haunting as they are fascinating. Tonight, we're uncovering the story of Rodney Alcala, one of the most elusive and manipulative serial killers in history. A quick warning before we begin. This video contains descriptions of graphic violence and disturbing events that may be difficult for some viewers to hear. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. And for those interested in a deeper look into this case, you can find related photos of the events, suspects, and victims at the end of this video. Let's begin. Rodney Alcala was born Rodrigo Jacques Alcala Bucher on August 23, 1943, in San Antonio, Texas, to a Mexican-American family. His early years seemed relatively normal until his father abandoned the family, leaving Rodney, his mother, and his siblings to relocate to LA, California for a fresh start. Growing up, Alcala was described as an intelligent but quiet child who showed an early interest in photography. This seemingly innocent passion would later become a sinister tool in his heinous crimes, cloaking his dark side under the guise of artistic curiosity. As Alcala entered adolescence, his academic intelligence became more apparent. He was accepted into the UCLA School of Fine Arts, where he pursued his passion for photography and fine arts. Alcala appeared well-adjusted, blending seamlessly into his environment and charming those around him. But there were already early signs of instability. His charm masked a darker side that friends and family had yet to see. While pursuing his education, Alcala became increasingly adept at manipulating people, a skill that would become essential to his modus operandi. In the 1960s, Alcala joined the U.S. Army as a clerk but was discharged after a nervous breakdown. He was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder by an Army psychiatrist, which ultimately shaped his behavioral patterns. Following his discharge, Alcala returned to LA and enrolled at UCLA, where he began to groom his skills as a photographer. This double life, an aspiring artist by day and a calculated predator beneath, would set the stage for Alcala's horrifying future. In his early 20s, Alcala had transformed himself into a master manipulator, harboring dark impulses he kept hidden behind a charming facade. Alcala's first known crime took place in 1968, when he lured 8-year-old Tali Shapiro into his car under the pretense of giving her a ride to school. He brought her to his apartment where he violently attacked and nearly killed her. Fortunately, a passerby noticed Alcala coaxing the young girl and alerted the police, who arrived just in time to save Shapiro's life. However, Alcala managed to escape and fled to the East Coast, becoming a fugitive. The brutal attack on Tali Shapiro revealed the lengths Alcala would go to satisfy his twisted urges, and it marked the beginning of a series of increasingly violent crimes. After evading authorities, Alcala took on a new identity, calling himself John Berger, and enrolled at New York University. He even studied under Roman Polanski, immersing himself further in the art world while continuing his predatory behavior. Alcala's approach was calculated. He lured young women under the guise of being a professional photographer, offering to take their pictures as a way to gain their trust. By the time authorities tracked him down in 1971, he had already committed several assaults. Though he was captured and extradited to California for his crime against Tali Shapiro, legal technicalities prevented him from facing severe consequences, allowing him to eventually secure parole. Upon his release, Alcala continued to exploit his charisma and photography skills to manipulate and lure victims. He would approach women with the promise of a photo shoot, using charm and intellect to win their trust before attacking them. Over the next several years, Alcala's ability to evade detection became a haunting testament to his cunning, making him one of the most dangerous predators of his time. Between 1968 and 1978, Rodney Alcala preyed on numerous young women and girls, leaving a tragic trail. Here are some of the most notable victims from this period. In 1971, Cornelia Crilly, a 23-year-old flight attendant in New York City, was found strangled in her apartment. At the time, Alcala's involvement went unnoticed, and it wasn't until much later that evidence tied him to her murder. Her case highlighted Alcala's capacity for blending into various communities across the country. In 1977, Ellen Jane Hoover, the 23-year-old daughter of a prominent Hollywood nightclub owner, disappeared in New York City after agreeing to meet Alcala, who introduced himself as a photographer. Her remains were later found in Westchester County. Ellen's high-profile family brought national attention to the case, intensifying the search for her killer. In 1977, just 18 years old, Jill Barkham had recently moved to LA when Alcala targeted her. Her body was found in a remote area, and her death, like many others, went unsolved for years. Her case, along with others, helped investigators eventually link Alcala's California murders. These cases, among others, reveal the brutality and manipulation Alcala used to lure young women, often under the guise of a photographer, leading to tragic outcomes across multiple states. In 1978, Rodney Alcala made a shocking appearance on the popular TV show The Dating Game. Under the name Bachelor No. 1, he showcased his charm and charisma, winning over both the audience and the show's bachelorette, Cheryl Bradshaw. His smooth performance on national television showed how dangerously well he could mask his true nature. During the show, Alcala was playful and confident, offering suggestive answers that entertained the audience. To viewers, he appeared to be a charming bachelor, even if a bit quirky. Cheryl Bradshaw's interaction with Rodney Alcala on The Dating Game began with her selecting him from a lineup of 3 bachelors, unaware of his dark past. Although Alcala seemed charming on stage, Bradshaw felt an uncomfortable vibe from him as they spoke privately backstage after the show. She later recalled how he came across as strange and described him as having an unsettling aura, which made her feel uneasy. Bradshaw said that Alcala's behavior shifted noticeably as he became more intense and gave her an eerie feeling. Trusting her instincts, she ultimately decided not to go on the date, later stating that his demeanor felt very off. Her choice to cancel likely saved her from becoming one of his victims, as Alcala was actively targeting women during that time. The idea of a serial killer on a popular dating show fueled the public's fascination with him, as the footage of his appearance became infamous. After The Dating Game, Alcala continued his spree, using his photographer guise to lure victims. The media would later highlight this shocking turn in the case, illustrating the depth of Alcala's manipulation. As Alcala's murders continued, investigators began to notice similar details in multiple unsolved cases. His tactic of photographing women left behind a trove of evidence that eventually connected him to numerous crimes. In 1979, Alcala was arrested for the abduction and assault of a 12-year-old girl, Robin Samsoe, in California. Robin Samsoe, a 12-year-old girl from Huntington Beach, California, disappeared on June 20, 1979, while riding her bike to ballet class. Earlier that day, she and a friend had been approached by a man, later identified as Rodney Alcala, who asked to take their photographs. Robin felt uncomfortable and quickly left, but her friend later recounted the encounter to police. Later that afternoon, Robin vanished, and her remains were found 12 days later in a remote area in the Sierra Madre foothills. Her disappearance and the eerie circumstances surrounding it drew significant attention, prompting an extensive search. Witnesses saw Alcala with Robin Samsoe near the beach shortly before she disappeared. Their descriptions helped police create a composite sketch that matched Alcala's appearance, strengthening their case against him. Alcala's arrest followed shortly afterward, and Robin's case became central to his prosecution. Her friend's testimony, along with the discovery of her earrings in Alcala's storage locker, became crucial evidence, leading to his conviction and eventually uncovering his connection to other victims. After searching his storage locker in Seattle, authorities found hundreds of photographs of young women and children, along with jewelry items later identified as belonging to some of his victims. These photos, as well as items linked to other cases, helped connect Alcala to multiple murders. Police discovered hundreds of photos of women and girls in his possession, many of whom remain unidentified to this day. This gallery of images hinted at the scale of Alcala's atrocities, suggesting that his known crimes may only scratch the surface of his horrific legacy. Alcala was finally captured in 1979 after a witness recognized him from a police sketch related to one of his latest murders. This time, authorities had enough evidence to build a case, leading to his arrest and trial. DNA evidence linked him to multiple unsolved cases, confirming his involvement in a string of murders that had stumped investigators for years. With each revelation, the true scope of Alcala's violence became increasingly clear, painting a picture of a man who was methodical, unfeeling, and relentless in his pursuit of victims. While in custody, Alcala attempted to defend himself, exhibiting bizarre behavior in court. He cross-examined himself in the third person, an unusual move that left jurors and observers unsettled. But despite his attempts at manipulation, the evidence against him was overwhelming. In 1980, he was convicted of several murders, though his case would go through numerous appeals and retrials over the following decades. Each legal battle revealed further details about his crimes, solidifying his reputation as one of the most brutal and manipulative killers of his era. Alcala's trials spanned decades due to numerous appeals and overturned convictions, leading to retrials that extended into the 2000s. His first conviction was overturned in 1984 due to procedural issues, and his second conviction was later invalidated as well. It wasn't until 2010, more than 30 years after his arrest, that Alcala was finally sentenced to death for 5 murders in California, though many believe he committed far more. During his final trial, Alcala represented himself, using graphic slideshows and lengthy monologues that disturbed both the jury and spectators. He would show his own photos of women and argue bizarre points in his defense, acting as both lawyer and defendant. This unorthodox approach drew public attention, as it underscored his manipulative and narcissistic tendencies, with Alcala seeming to relish the opportunity to control the narrative. Alcala's final sentencing closed the chapter on his court appearances, though he continued to appeal from death row. The toll his crimes took on the families of his victims was immense, and his cases have since been featured in countless true crime documentaries and articles. To this day, many of Alcala's unidentified photos remain online, as authorities hope to link him to further unsolved cases. Throughout his numerous trials, Alcala remained incarcerated, ultimately staying on death row in California until his death in 2021. Alcala's story serves as a warning about the dangers of predators who blend into society. His case has inspired many changes in law enforcement, especially regarding how missing persons and assault cases are investigated. Thank you for watching and joining me on this journey into the disturbing story of Rodney Alcala. Your support means so much, helping me bring these real-life horror stories to light. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a comment. Every bit of interaction helps my channel grow. And as always, I welcome your thoughts and insights. You'll find images related to this case at the end of the video, and any support links to relevant sites or organizations are in the description. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay warm until our next story together.